What up, homeboys? A lot of people link me this video because they said that what I said on my video about why Capcom rushed the game was wrong. So, Bellular got a little bit of a theory. Like, his theory is financial, apparently, judging by the thumbnail. So, let's check it out. Let's see what he
everyone,
says.
Bad things can happen to good games, and this is one of those days. Monster Hunter Wilds has broken records. Like, seriously, it's become Capcom's fastest-selling game ever. It had Steam concurrence of 1.3 million, which is insane, and an estimated 8 million copies sold in just 3 days. That is absolutely cracked. And right now, it's the 5th highest player count on Steam ever, which is a massive victory that should have investors and players and everybody celebrating. But it's not really like that in PC. The PC version has been teetering at, well, the 50s in terms of its review score. Thousands of people are calling it unplayable because of devastating performance issues. One's backed up by the likes of
You can tell it went up, like it was at like 52, now it's 59, so it is going up.
Are calling it unplayable because of
Probably
devastating
because of the
performance
refunds.
issues. One's backed up by the likes of Digital Foundry, but when you filter by language, well, you find that actually Chinese-speaking reviews are utterly scathing compared to English-speaking reviews, and it's not even close.
31%
So the whole story's odd, but it's not odd in one sense. The reason why is fairly interesting, but most important and looming over all of this is that Capcom appear to have calculated this in advance and decided.
Didn't this happen before with like when Overwatch got taken down, right? When Overwatch 2 came out, wasn't it like, of course it was like very negative and everybody was mad, but wasn't it like specifically Chinese reviews that made it like super negative on Steam? It keeps happening.
Decided that all of this chaos was an acceptable cost of doing business. And if you look at their sales numbers, they are right. It's not like this bombed on Steam. It is peaking on Steam. But what if I told you that Capcom rushed PC because they found themselves 3/4 into the fiscal year, but only just over halfway to their revenue target? Meaning that to hit targets and, well, for the people who run the show to please the people who they ultimately are accountable to, something bad had to happen. Something had to give. Monster Hunter World hit PC 6 months after console. Rise hit PC 9 months after Switch. Wilds, though, as we learn here, well, it did not have that luxury.
Came out at the
What
same
this
time,
could and should have been is the absolute validation of Capcom's big strategy that they've rolled over the last while. Sadly, though, it is that, but only on paper. Now, as a game, this is perfectly capitalizing on, well, player interest in deep, systems-driven co-op experiences. It's doing that perfectly, and they really have pushed a 20-year-old niche franchise off the Nintendo 3DS and into the mainstream on consoles. Critics love it, sales are astronomical. There are a few design choices that are clearly aimed at their newer market, like the kind of walk and talk style PlayStation AAA sequences that some people don't love, but
it's so awful. Like the first half of the game, there is like this, I like calling it rail shooter. Okay, it doesn't even do him justice what he's saying. They put like, because you can skip the cutscenes now. By the way, back in Monster Hunter World, you were not allowed to skip cutscenes. You had to install a mod to do it. To this day, so stupid. Like in between every quest, like there's like this little segment of the game where you're just sitting on the sacred and like you gotta walk to a place and like they put you on like RP walking speed, like walking super slowly with the NPCs, and the NPCs are talking about things you don't care about, and there is no skipping it, and all you can do is just sit there and look around, and it takes like 2 or 3 minutes every time. It is like so transparently made to waste your time so you don't beat the game too fast. I hate it. I just hate it when they want to waste my time every time. Like, games are more and more designed to waste your time. The game is fine. Why do you have to do this? Like, are people gonna really be mad if the game lasts 10 more hours, but it's because they wasted less time? I don't know, I just feel it's bizarre. I don't even think it's for the Western market. Like, I do not see American people liking that. I think it's more of a Japanese thing. I don't get why he's saying that.
What you find is most of the gameplay complaints evaporate once people hit high rank endgame. That basically shows us
because
that
the
as
plot
Monster
ends.
Hunter, this is goddamn incredible. But what does not evaporate are the technical disasters, and they truly are disasters. While console versions run relatively smoothly, PC is a technical catastrophe. Digital Foundry didn't mince their words. Monster Hunter Wilds, we can't
relatively smoothly is 30 FPS, by the way.
recommend the PC version. Substantial technical problems must be addressed. When I say must, they really do mean it. These are bad. They warn against you playing on anything that's got less than 8 gigs of VRAM. They note the DLSS is ineffective, which is kind of concerning, right? It points at some of the underlying problems, and they even express shock at the hardware requirements for even baseline performance. This should not be the way that it is. People are reporting texture pop-ins, disastrous frame rates, crashes constantly, multiplayer failures, and progression blocking bugs. I mean, at least we've got a few hilarious screenshots from it, and
The
in a
Origami
way, you could
Dragon
look
is
at all of
better.
that and think, there's another Capcom game, Dragon's Dogma 2, that had a lot of problems in PC, and that does raise serious questions about RE Engine's capability to handle open worlds. Now, for Dragon's Dogma 2, the devs eventually found that NPCs were bottlenecking like the CPU side of things majorly in town areas. That was just like a root problem in that game. With Wilds, it does seem the issues are more complex. There are theories everywhere, of course. Those range from a botched direct storage implementation to a really simple, funny one of a misspelled config file. Fixing the config file does not make all the problems go away, sadly.
It doesn't make any problem go away. We went over this. I made an entire video on it. It's a myth, okay? Like, yes, there is a typo in that file, but like, what happens is because the configuration file has a typo, it defaults to the default value, and that value is the same value as the one they tried to write. So it's one of those things where Capcom made a mistake that cancels itself out. I wonder what would happen if we change the number. Probably not much, but yeah, like, that's not true, okay? The typo is not causing any problems.
Those are theories. Right now, we do not rock solid know exactly what the problems are, but it's clear that there are problems. And what makes this real frustrating is comparison. Look at the relatively smooth launches of, say, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There are other big, gorgeous-looking games on PC that have had good launches, and Capcom's only response has just been generic advice like, check your system's requirements and update your drivers, which is not reassuring to people who have spent $70 on a game that I would go as far as saying is unplayable. Some of that's the quality of the software, some of that is my own standards, but fuck it, I wouldn't play that. Now, it's worth mentioning the other sort of modern Capcom special here. There are some stupid microtransactions. I mean, hey, like, at least part of the Capcom formula is also banger video games, right? So thumbs up for that, but it's got the usual. There's a torrent of day one microtransaction cosmetic things. There's a cosmetic bundle that contains all of those plus the promise of future ones. And worst of all, there's a character and Palico edit voucher thing going on. They're sold in packs of 3 at $6 each after your first one, which doesn't really feel good. And the edit vouchers deserve special attention here. I mean, it's weird. They're edit vouchers that just cost nearly 10% of the base game, but as noted by VGC, they were not available during the review period, and that conveniently prevented
Isn't that convenient?
Factoring those into their review scores. Even though I like Capcom, I really like what they're doing with their games, but that is scummy. So by now you understand, right, that there are problems here, but they're problems that are in an otherwise stellar game. We're going to have to talk about the money and why this has happened, but first, we've got the curious case of the reviews being truly strange. Looking deeper into the Steam reviews reveals something fascinating that I didn't expect. On Friday morning after launch, English language reviews were actually 64% positive. If you just looked at the Steam page, you wouldn't have thought that. Those climbed to 67% by Monday, which is not stellar. You need 70% plus for a positive rating, but hey, it is far better than the overall score the game had at that time. And across most regions, the reviews fluctuated between 65% and 80% positivity by Monday. So why is the average so low? China. Yeah, it's China. Chinese language reviews started at a brutal 11% positivity. They only reached 24% positivity by Monday. And this
How much do you think it plays a role, the fact that China is like a third world region, kind of like my region, and like the hardware for like this stuff doesn't exist? Okay, so like the 9070 XT came out today in Argentina, by the way, because I am filming this on the 6th of March, okay? It just came out. $1,600. Who would pay in the right mind $1,600 for a 9070 XT? Like, it's supposed to go for like $600. I bet you in China it's like just like that. You know, like American MSRP is not reality in most places in the world. Like, how much would it cost you in China to get like a decent setup to play this game? Do they even have access to this setup? Because like they got all that cheap van thing, right? Like can they even get like powerful graphics cards for PC right now? Is that a thing?
Actually matters a lot because, in case you haven't noticed, China's rather large, and Chinese reviews make up roughly 40% of total reviews for this game in Steam. The Chinese gaming market is predominantly PC focused because they didn't really have consoles for a long time, and they're just real unforgiving of bad PC performance. They really do seem to be. Now, you could perhaps say that Western players who are more emotionally attached to this brand are just more forgiving, right? So many people in the West will have played this on their 3DS because, again,
the
Monster
copium
Hunter
is
was
huge.
more of a console
The copium
thing,
is
and console penetration into
chain.
China is basically just recent. China really is ingrained on mobile phones and PC. So with China, it basically seems you've got an absolutely humongous gaming audience, a humongous audience in Steam, right? They are very PC focused. They don't have a lot of brand affinity with Monster Hunter. They probably are aware of just how like massively hyped up it is because, of course, they can't access the other Monster Hunter games in Steam, which means that they play this at launch and basically go, what the hell is happening? And they leave a negative review. So, a fairly interesting quirk, I suppose, of how games have developed across different regions, but in no way is this a surprise. And so with this first mystery, a rather pedestrian one, solved, I think we've got to talk about the second mystery, because you're probably looking at all of this, looking at the funny screenshots and thinking, there's no way that Capcom didn't know this would happen. I mean, there are problems on basically
Of course
every
not.
piece.
The beta was out. Like, there was plenty of people talking about it. Like, what are they, blind?
See, it's not a rare issue. So why did Capcom not delay this game to fix it? Because they've had other delayed releases.
Okay, here comes
for
the
Monster Hunter games
conspiracy
on PC. Well, the answer is money. Last quarter, Capcom saw a 33% drop in income and a 16% drop in net sales year on year because they had a lack of major releases. Now, here's the spicy bit. Their forecast projects 165 billion yen in net sales this year. That's, of course, this financial year. But as of December 31st, they'd only made 88.5 billion. Now, you don't really need to be a mathematician to know that one of those numbers...
Okay, I do need to be a mathematician to know. How much is like 165 billion yen? Okay, so $1 billion and $100 million, $1,100 million. I do not think this game is gonna make $1,100 million. There's no way. There's no way they are gonna hit that projection. Because the fiscal year, it ends in March, right? Like that's the way it works in Japan and America, right? Like in April, the year ends. Okay, March 31st, there you go. So in Japan, the fiscal year ends in March, this very month. If they gotta make 1,100 million, okay, so that's 6 zeros, we divide it by 70, okay, assuming Steam doesn't take a cut. Actually, Steam takes a cut, 30%, and assuming there's no taxes or no nothing, okay, just like raw revenue, we are talking of, I messed up, they gotta sell 22 million copies. I mean, of course, microtransactions, but you are also not taking expenses and stuff. Monster Hunter Wilds is not gonna sell 22 million copies in a month. Alright? Like, let's see, where would that put the game in here? Okay, so 22 million copies. Okay, it would be almost a GTA San Andreas in worth of sales. That's not gonna happen in a month, okay? In the course of the lifetime of the game, in like 2 or 3 years, maybe, but they are not gonna meet that target. There is zero shot they are gonna make 165 billion yen or whatever. Actually, they need 88, so let's do that really quick here. That's the more reasonable 600 million. So they would need 12 million copies, something like that. It's still a crazy number, okay? Like, they sold 8 million, so they might hit it barely. It's still, I don't know, I don't think they are gonna meet their financial goal. It's just insane to put like half of your revenue in a single game like that.
Is a lot smaller than the other number. They are 3 quarters into the year, but only halfway to their revenue target. Many people would say this is a problem. Q4, the quarter that we're in now, has got to generate almost as much as the previous 3 quarters combined. And outside of live service stuff, Wilds is their only big release. It's their only option. So, unlike Monster Hunter World, which released on PC 6 months after consoles, Capcom basically could not afford to stagger the release, because even with the popularity of Wilds on consoles, they know PC is big, PC only seems to be getting bigger, and a PC release was likely needed to guarantee their sales target, because if they missed sales targets, even though their big marquee game Monster Hunter sold well on consoles, that would probably spook the market. So, it came out when it came out, with a whole month worth of sales to let them sail past 165 billion yen. That is likely a major part of why Wilds did not get the PC time that it, as a game, deserves and that us as customers deserve. The other part of the puzzle is that to Capcom, they don't need to fix if they can mitigate. So, PS5 Pro, PS5, Series X, Series S. That is 4 hardware targets. PC is obviously exponentially more complex. I mean, even just the problems the game devs have had with, Intel CPUs and drivers, hasn't that been fun? Getting it right then in PC would have taken time that they did not have. That meant that Capcom only had one option, a strategy of mitigation. Well, there's the option of a delay, but as I've just covered, that's obviously not what was going to happen. So what they did is they ran 2 full PC betas to identify the worst problems, they launched a benchmark tool to sort of warn off players on weaker machines, and they just relied on their fanbase's willingness to look past issues. And certainly if you compare the English and Chinese language reviews and you sort of think, well, the English speakers are probably going to be the more core Monster Hunter people. I suppose it kind of did work. I mean, from where I'm sitting, it did work. They've got a lot of sales. And it has worked before. I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2 sold 3 million units. It was considered a real big success for Capcom. More tellingly, though, Monster Hunter World sold 5 million copies just on the last-gen consoles. It then rose to 10 million after its delayed PC release. And it's not like its release was great. It launched to sub 50% user reviews as well, which kind of
the optimization in World at launch was also apparently terrible, so you got that going on. Today, World baseline without any mods, it runs amazing, so they eventually did fix it. Now, can they fix this game? Assuming Capcom is working in good faith, I think anybody would tell you we're looking at months, several months of work to get the game optimized to like a decent state at this point. Are they gonna do it though? Do they have a reason to do it? That's the other big one, right?
Means if you're Capcom, you look at all of this and you think, bad release, Steam reviews, not a problem for us. We've got Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is more powerful than a spooky red bit of lettering on Steam. And thus far, Wilds is performing better than World in like both reviews.
I mean, come on, like, we complain on Steam and we buy it anyway. Do they care? Like, they are not stupid. The fact that it has so many negative reviews, it points to the reason of the problem, that people bought it anyway, right? And granted, yeah, I bought a new graphics card, I can run the game just fine, so, like, to me, it's not a problem, but, like, this is the answer that nobody's gonna like, and I am part of the problem because I bought the game. As long as people buy it anyway, why would they care? Like, what consequence do they have? This is the most sold game they have ever made. And yeah, I mean, sure, it would have sold a little better if it came out more optimized, but I disagree with this theory. I'm gonna tell you why in a minute.
And sales. And that means that hitting the shared release date at the expense of further PC optimization, I would say basic PC optimization, like product speaking, well, that's actually worked. And as we've seen with, say, Elden Ring, Stalker, now Monster Hunter, audiences are willing to forgive performance issues for franchises they're emotionally attached to, at least as much as this one, and as long as there's an expectation that improvement is possible.
That's important right there. Yes.
And all this brings me to a DJ Khaled album, suffering from success. That's what's happening to PC. PC is becoming more important, but it almost seems that ports are getting worse these days, which kind of seems insane, but I can see why. If PC is more important to the bottom line, then delaying in PC will hurt more. And unlike consoles, PC, well, it is genuinely a harder problem in terms of optimization and launches than consoles are, right?
Yeah, like this is the thing, right? Like there was a long belief, and Rockstar is gonna do the same thing, by the way, with GTA 6. Granted, like I think Capcom and like all the game developers pivoting to like microtransactions, let's be honest, it is not as big a deal as it used to be. But if you release your game on console, right, for like a couple months and then do it on PC later, yes, you get time to optimize. That's not the reason, okay? As we have proven with this game, they have very little reason to care about optimization. What's going on is that it's like the ultimate way to stop piracy, okay? A PlayStation game or an Xbox game is not gonna get cracked if you just have the release window where you can only get it on console. How many people of you got a console and a PC? I would say a lot. I would say most people that have a console have a computer. Maybe not a great computer. I would go the other way, and I would say that most people that have a really good computer do have a console. That's what Rockstar is banking on here, right? Like people are just gonna not be able to contain themselves. They are not gonna wait a year. They are gonna go for console and they are gonna buy the game twice. That's the other thing, right? They wanna have you double double dip. If you buy it on console and then you buy it on PC, that's twice. But this assures them on a very hype launch, okay? When you get a really big game, there's gonna be 6 months where it's impossible to crack the game because it's on console. A lot of people are gonna buy the game that would have pirated it. It doesn't work for every game, only for like super hype games, but I would say this game is one of those. Now, I do not think, even though the financial goal, yeah, that may very well be a factor, and I do not think that's it. I don't think they are just trying to pad the numbers. I think they're trying to make the game succeed, period. And yes, it has to do with GTA 6.
That's a genuine challenge. And if there's one thing that our industry historically and currently sucks at, it's giving engineers the time they need to actually do shit right. So you would think the importance of PC would increase the value of the PC port being good. In a way it does, but in reality, we're seeing companies simply not think that the damage of a rough launch is worth the delay if their franchise is strong. And at the end of the day, it's all down to the numbers, it's all down to incentives, but not really in the way you'd first think. So let me explain. A smaller publisher or an indie dev might rush out a game because they're incentivized by actually getting some money so they don't literally go bust. But a giant publicly traded AAA could delay. They can tank that hit, but so often they don't, and game releases feel rushed. And that's because the C-suite decision makers are working on their own incentives to keep investors happy. That's actually what you're doing if you're in the C-suite. And I mean, even the performance compensation of C-suite people, well, that can often be tied to stock price. And that should align their interests with the company and the value it produces.
I mean, that's
so
their
often
literal job.
It doesn't. It aligns their value with the short term, not long-term value. And that's not because good games are bad business. It's because the market itself is a game with its own rules, its own norms, its own incentives. And when the bigwigs are playing that game, the upshot is damage to our games. And that has just happened to Monster Hunter. Time and time again, we see this. And in the case of Riot Games, well, they're 100% owned by Tencent. Tencent has still got to play to the market, and it's pretty damn clear that things are not all great at Riot. They've literally said that, well, League of Legends is unsustainable. And while they did walk back changes, it's still a spicy situation. Worse will follow, and you can learn about that in our next story.
Okay, so first of all, I love Bellular. I think Bellular is awesome. He got his own game studio and he got insider info in a lot of this stuff. So this might have a lot of truth in it. I disagree, okay? First of all, I don't want to misrepresent what he's saying, okay? He's saying that the sales projections of Capcom were underperforming and they need to end the year. The fiscal year in Japan ends this month. So they have a month to make up all the money they need to make to meet their targets. So that way they can look good on the stock market. Okay, that's his theory, and absolutely you can bet there's probably a factor. I get a different theory, and none of these theories are mutually exclusive. I think it is very likely that both of them are happening at the same time. Elden Ring is making an online game mode and is coming out on May 29th. Okay, so that is 2 months from now, right? I don't know about you, but Monster Hunter right now, it is thriving because a lot of the Dark Souls community took over Monster Hunter. You look at Twitch and like all the top streamers of Monster Hunter Wilds, they are Dark Souls streamers because it is a similar game, similar mechanics, the player base is the same, and there is not a lot to do in Dark Souls or Elden Ring or whatever right now. If this thing is going on at the same time as Monster Hunter Wilds, what are the chances that they're gonna get all this exposure, all these Dark Souls streamers playing the game, all the community from Dark Souls? This is gonna take over that. So that's a huge hit right there. An Elden Ring DLC taking over, and this is a big one. It's like an online mode, so that's a big one. Also, GTA 6 is expected to come out in September, so you also got that going on. Nobody wants to be close to GTA 6 date. That's the blast radius, okay? Like, it doesn't matter if you're like a game that has nothing to do with it. People are gonna do anything they can to play GTA 6. That's just the way it works. It's like one of the most biggest franchises of all time. I think it's like top 3 most sold game ever, and it will not be an exception this time. So if the game comes out like 3 months before or 3 months after GTA 6, that's a big problem. And we are not talking about that far away, right? Like Night Rain, which I think would be like a more direct competitor. That that's just 2 months out. I do not think 2 months is enough time to optimize the game. I legitimately assume Capcom is trying their hardest to optimize the game. I do not think you can fix this broken mess of an engine in 2 months. I am gonna do it as simple as I can, okay? Imagine this is the market, okay? This is the gaming market. Say Monster Hunter is gonna sell this much. The way it came out today is gonna sell this much money on purple. If the game came out better optimized, if the game ran better, maybe they would sell this much money, right? Because a lot of people that cannot run the game are gonna buy the game because it runs better, right? Now, is this little gap here, okay, this little bonus optimization, is this little chunk in here, okay, is this little extra sales in here gonna be more than what you would get if you were competing with Elden Ring? I do not think so. I think Elden Ring, I don't know how the game is gonna come out, I do not keep up with it, but there's a good chance that Elden Ring is gonna slaughter Monster Hunter if it came out at the same time, and even if it didn't, say only 30%, 20% of the people that would have played Monster Hunter are gonna go to Elden Ring, that's gonna be way more sales lost than they sell for the bad performance. Not to mention that if you are optimizing the game pre-release, you are probably gonna be on a full production team with hundreds of people compared to post-release where you only got some engineers working on optimization and everybody else is not on the team or doing something else or whatever. They are not in a full production team paying hundreds of people for it. So optimizing the game post-release is also cheaper. But eventually, what just happened is that Capcom made up the numbers and they realized that this chunk they can get in here is gonna be way higher than if they could optimize the game and get this extra bit of sales, but they are gonna compete with other games. Do not be mistaken, I do really think that performance is hurting sales. Maybe not a lot, but it is absolutely hurting sales. It is just not hurting sales enough. Imagine we lived in a world where they would have lost this much sales from bad performance. Now that would make them care, right? But even if they know they are gonna lose this much, it's still worth it. And at the end of the day, Bellular says, right? Their job is to make the stock price go up. That's what they do. And if they did the math and they think that's what's gonna make the stock go up the hardest, that's what they are gonna do. So yeah, I like this little expose here. I think it's a very valid position that he's taking about trying to meet financial goals. Absolutely, that would never be a motivation in other gaming companies, right? That never happened before. But I think reducing it to a single explanation is also probably not very smart. As much as we like making fun of executives, okay, usually when you get to run a huge corporation, you kinda know what you are doing most of the time. I think the most easy explanation right here is that they added up and they did a calculation and this is what they came up with. And they are probably right. That's the part that kinda sucks. Subscribe to Bellular, give him some love, okay? We love this man. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.